Hey everybody, Matt Avery here, back with another Timer Tip Tuesday. Today we're going to be going over the feature called Super Sub Events. So this is a feature on RunSignup that is highly utilized in RaceDay scoring. It's a little bit confusing and it can cause some problems if you don't understand what it's doing, how it's working, if it was set up without your knowledge and the RunSignup backend. So we're going to do a little deep dive on that today. All right, looks like the attendees have stabilized, so we're good to go. Again, welcome to another Timer Tip Tuesday. We're going to be going over super and sub events on RunSignup and how they work with RaceDay scoring today. As always, we have the questions panel available to you in GoToWebinar. Use that if you have any questions as we're going through today's session. This will be recorded and we'll post it over on our YouTube after the fact. If you do want to reference it, you can do that afterwards, or if you need to jump early, feel free and then go back and watch it at your own leisure. I've also given a handout on the right-hand side of GoToWebinar. You can download the slide deck that we're going through today if you want to follow along there or go through any of the provided links in the slides. So yeah, let's jump right in. I do have Soren on the back end, as well as I think James is on today, answering your questions, and they'll bring them up to me if they're relevant to the whole group. So let's jump right in. So we're going to be going over a number of things today. First off, we're going to talk about what the heck are super and sub events. Then we're going to discuss the most common use case of super and sub events, and that is a combo event. Then we'll talk through how bids work with super sub events. We're going to talk about how it works with RaceDay scoring. We're going to dive in a little bit further, discussing a new feature in RaceDay scoring, local super sub event settings. So if you're not using RunSignup, how could you use super sub events? We're going to briefly touch on combo event scoring. I recently did a video and setup guide on this functionality, so we won't be going too far into detail on the combo event scoring scenario, as we've got a lot of good content out there on that, and not too much time today. Then we'll talk about a different use case that we see sometimes, an alternate registration category use case. And then we'll finish up with a quick note on race result integration. If you're using that functionality to sync data between RunSignup and Race Result 12, how this works with it. And I'll do a quick demo and Q&A if you have any further questions. So let's jump right in, got a bit to go through. Okay, so what are super and sub events? So this is a setup on RunSignup. So you have these registration events that are listed, a 5K, a 10K, and an event called the 5K plus 10K combo. That's the name of the event. If you say that an event is a super event, it means that the participants that register for that event will show up in one or many other registration events, and we call those sub-events. So basically, sub-events are registration events that have participants included in them from other super events. So if you look on the right here, this is the setup form, and effectively what it's doing is it's saying that at the very bottom, you can see the check boxes for the sub events for 5K plus 10K combo. It's saying that everybody who is in the 5K plus 10K combo event will also show up in the 5K and the 10K. So that means if I come in and I register for this event called 5K plus 10K combo, without any further work necessary, my registration will show up in RaceDay scoring, both in the 5K and the 10K. And also in the 5K plus 10K combo if you want to bring that data down. So in general, think of super events as a combo event where participants will be placed into other events automatically. This is a great example here. You have a 5K, a 10K, and a combo. You want all those participants who register in the combo to automatically show up in the 5K and the 10K so they don't have to register twice. So all of these settings are found in RunSignup under Race, Registration, Event Grouping, and then scroll down, you're going to see a header for super events, and then you'll see all these checkboxes here. And there's going to be a little note under each of these headings. It'll say, like, all of these event participants will show up under reports and downloads for each of the events selected below. So just think about as you're doing it, okay, should I mark the 10K as a sub event or the 5K? No, I don't want the 5K participants to show up in the 10K. I want the combo to show up in 5K and 10K. So if you read through the text, it describes exactly what you're about to do. So you just be careful with this. The good thing to note about these settings is they are non-destructive, meaning that if you make a change, it doesn't actually transfer people around or move them into different events or anything like this. It doesn't actually touch the data. It just changes the way it works. So if you made a mistake, no worries. Uncheck the box, save it again. You're good to go. You're just like you were before you made that change. So next big question I have about super and sub events is, how do bib numbers work? So this is important to understand if you're planning on using the super and sub event setup with RunSignup. The way it works is you register once. I registered for the bundle event. I have one registration ID. I have one t-shirt size selected. I have one question response answered. I don't actually have 3 registrations. I only have one. And it happens to be that that one registration will also show up in these other categories. That's really critical to understand because you can only have one bib assignment to one registration. One registration can't have 3 different bib assignments. So if you are planning on using super and sub events with RunSignup, you have to make sure that it's okay with your registration coordinator and how you're distributing your bibs, that the person or the people who are doing the bundle events, I registered for the 5K and the 10K, they have to make sure that it's okay that they wear the same bib for each of those events. That's really critical, and if that isn't going to work out, you'll have to think of a different method for having people register for these events. I've seen the RunSignup support team, they recommend multi-event registration instead if they know they have to have separate bib numbers for each of the sub-events. And in that case, basically the person is actually they're actually registering 3 times. They just make it a little bit easier in the flow. They check 3 boxes as they register. So it's just something to think about as you are considering using super and sub events, whether or not you have the same bib number across all the events or do not. It's really critical to determine what kind of setup you're going to use. So as you're working with registration coordinators and they're talking about a bundle event, or you see a registration page that you're working on or you're timing and it has a bundle event, ask them, hey, what's the plan for bib numbers for the people in the bundle? Are they getting the same bib? Are they getting a different bib? And if you can convince them to have the same bib, that's much easier. So try that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what this looks like in RaceDay scoring. Over the past year, we've made some significant improvements to show to you in RaceDay scoring that there are super and sub events enabled for this race. And you'll see it in 2 main places. Number 1, as you are setting up the scored events in RaceDay scoring, you normally come in and you say, I'm gonna create a scored event and I want to include this registration event or that registration event or these 2 different registration events. If you notice that there's a tooltip now on the registration event checkboxes, like you see on the right here, it will tell you, hey, if you select this 10K, this will also include participants from the 5K plus 10K combo. That is telling you that there are super and sub events enabled at RunSignup, and it's going to impact what participants actually show up when you check this box. So at the bottom, you can see here, again, if you hover over one of the super events, the 5K plus 10K combo, it's going to tell you, hey, participants in this event are also included in each of these sub-events, the 5K and 10K. So those bundle participants are already automatically included in the 5K. So this will make it more clear to you that you do not need to additionally include the super event in each of the sub-events scoring, as those participants are already included. So in this case, in the bottom right-hand side here, I have a 5K and I'm about to check this box that says 5K plus 10K combo, because I would think, hey, the combo people got to show up in the 5K too. This is telling you, hey, be aware, these participants are already included in the 5K, so you don't actually have to check this box. And if you do, you're going to end up with duplicates. So this is something to think about. If you see this tooltip, take note. The second thing you'll see is a yellow note panel will appear at the top of the page on scored events, and it'll tell you there are super and sub events set up for this event, for this race. And it'll explain exactly what this means. It'll tell you like, hey, I have a list of events here. The 5K also includes participants from the super event 5K plus 10K combo. same in the 10K, and then the 10K plus 5K, 5K plus 10K combo are included in each of the sub events here. So it'll just give you a breakdown of the entire setup that you would see at RunSignup. Additionally, it has a link over to RunSignup if you want to go adjust those settings. So if you see that banner pop up, remember, oh, they've got super and sub events enabled, and take that into consideration when you're mapping events. If you see anything wacky, like people are showing up in 2 different events and you don't know why, go to scored events, see if there's that panel, and then you'd be like, oh, they may have messed up, they may have accidentally enabled this feature without them realizing what it does. And I'll show you how you can adjust it. But in this case, if they really mess things up, you can probably go into the super sub event settings at RunSignup and just uncheck the boxes and save the page, and that'll get things back to normal. So those are the 2 areas to look at if you're curious about whether or not your event has super sub events enabled on the checkboxes, and at the top here you'll see that notes panel. So one thing you'll notice when you're using RaceDay scoring with super sub events is that the participants are going to show up in multiple events. That's kind of how the whole system works. If you change the event selection here, you'll see bundle participant. They show up in all events. And then if you click 5K, they also show up there. 1 participant, same bib number, also in 5K, also in the 10K, and also in the combo. So this is how it's working just as we expect. Those bundle participants should be in all events. And then if you click into our participant record, you'll see here in the scoring data and in the registration tab, this little event area has 3 toggles. In this case, there's 3 events available. In some events, they have like 10 events or something like that. But you can toggle between the different versions of the participant so that you can change data about them on the individual event level. So for example, you have a 5K plus 10K bundle event, and you have them running in the 5K early on the day and the 10K later or something. And for some reason, they dropped out of the 10K, but they're going to continue on and do that 5K. Well, that's what you would want to do here. You want to come into the appropriate version of the event and mark that version as dropped, but the other version is not dropped. So that's what that toggle is for. It's to change the version of the participant that you're editing, and just keep in mind, those changes are going to be specific to the version of the event that or the version of the participant that you have selected there. So if you're making changes, you're going and you're quickly, dropping a participant, just be aware if you see those toggle buttons at the top that you have to pick the right one. Otherwise, you might make a change by accident to a version of the participant you didn't mean to. Now, let's talk a little bit about local super sub event settings. When we say local, what we mean is usually a non-run sign-up race. So usually, these super and sub event settings are only set up in the past, at least, on run sign-up races. It's a feature that RunSignup uses to allow participants to register for one event and get put into others. But we had some situations where timers really wanted to use this kind of functionality without using RunSignup for registration. So we added it to the form when you're creating a race. So in RaceDay scoring, when you're creating a local race, you can actually mark other events as sub-events. So in this case, I have, you can't see it at the top, it's a 5K run, then the 10K run, and then the 5K plus 10K combo. And I'm marking the 5K and the 10K as sub-events of the 5K plus 10K, so that everybody who I decide to import into the 5K plus 10K will show up in the 5K and the 10K, as well as the 5K plus 10K. A cool thing you should note about this is that you can actually use these settings for run sign-up races. And if I were to go into a run sign-up race and I select on the next page, I'll show you here, or it's on another page, you can actually edit the race and go back into this wizard and you can see the sub-event settings from run sign-up. What's cool is you can actually override these settings. So if for whatever reason you decide you want to make a change to the sub-event setup, but you don't want to adjust it at run sign-up, for whatever reason, they wanted to keep it that way for registration, but you didn't want it for scoring, you can override those settings by going into the race in RaceDay scoring, going to sync settings, clicking edit race, and then unchecking the sub events you don't want or adding the ones that you do. Okay, so brief discussion on combo scoring. So many timers these days we find are using super and sub events as a way to score participants in 2 events, and then again in a third combo event, which would produce their total time between both races. So this is a little bit of an involved setup, and I do go over it pretty in detail on a separate guide and video that I recorded not too long ago. So I'll link over to that. But the basic breakdown is you have to do a few things. You have to actually set up a scored event for the combo super event. So usually for a race like this, you would, if you didn't plan on scoring with combo, you would just set up a 5K and a 10K, and people get scored in both and they're done. In the combo, what you'd want to do is actually add a scored event for the combo itself. And then you basically are saying, for those who are just in the combo challenge, I want to create segments for the 5K and the 10K, and I'm going to have a rest segment added to it. The rest segment pulls out the time spent in this period from the total time. So at the end of the day, you have 5K plus 10K, and you're good. So basically, it's like they start at the very beginning of the first race and they end at the very end of the last race, and you subtract out the time between the 2 races. So you do have to do some additional work to make this work right. You have to have separate timing locations for each sub event. So you see over here on the right, the 5K starts at 5K start and then finishes at 5K finish. The rest starts at 5K finish and then finishes at 10K start. And then the 10K starts at 10K start and then finishes at 10K finish. So it's really important to do this because you need additional filtering to define a specific time frame for each event. And this is needed because everybody has the same bib number. You need to tell the system, hey, if you see bib 1 between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., that should be a 5K time for that person. So what that does, it says, okay, find the version of this participant that is registered for 5K and give them this time. And then if the system sees a time between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., I know that's a 10K time. So find the version of the participant with that bib number and that's registered for the 10K event and give them this time, so that you won't have any crossover or ambiguity between where the reads should go. You have to make sure to be very careful about setting those additional filtering rules on each of the locations you have to make sure there's no crossover. Another really critical thing for this is you need to have chip start times, at least for the second event of the day. If you have them for both, great. Not necessarily required for the first event, but the second event, absolutely, we require you to collect chip start times. Now, if you're not doing a chip start, you can do a workaround. You can import chip start times from a file, and I've done this many times for timers. It works fairly well. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it gets the job done. And the reason is that in the combo event, we only know about one gun time, the gun time from the first start of the race. We don't know anything about the gun time from the second start of the day. So we don't have any frame of reference to give someone a gun start for the 10K in this case, it started later. So you have to rely on a chip start time for those secondary events. And again, like I said, you can always import those if you are not considering collecting chip starts, but it makes it a whole lot easier if you just are able to do chip starts. So I've gone over this in a nice little video guide here. And if you go into the help doc, it does go into more detail on this. And please, 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 if you're struggling with a setup or if you're interested in using it, set it up in advance, use the Get Help area, send us a support ticket. We've done reviews of many of these kinds of races and we'll point you in the right direction. We do not want you to get into a place where you show up on a Saturday and you haven't really tested it, or you're not sure if it's going to work right, and you have to do a whole ton of changes while the PA is blaring in your face. We all know how difficult that is. So please, please, please don't hesitate to send us a race for review if you're trying this out. And definitely check out the video and read through the guide. It's really helpful. Okay, so we've talked about this combo registration kind of use case quite a bit. The other common use case for super and sub events is a little bit different. So this is usually will happen if a registration coordinator sets up like a secondary registration category for a multitude of reasons. Like maybe they have some kind of discount for club members. It's only valid in one event or another event, but they're all actually running the same distance. So this is, a fairly common situation. Timers are usually familiar with this, and all they do in race day scoring is check both boxes for the 5K. They say, hey, 5K, yeah, I want to include the 5K and the 5K charity registration. The problem is if the registration coordinator figured out how to do super events and did this without telling the timer, and then you're going to end up with duplicated charity registrations if you do what you normally do and check both boxes. So again, be aware if you see those tooltips, if you see that panel showing up over your scored events, you may want to double check and see this registration coordinator may have already done this super event setup, so you don't have to check the 5K run charity registration box. You could just check the 5K run. So what you'll see over here on the left is an example of what this looks like. I've got a 5K run, and I'm about to decide to check both of these boxes here. I want to include 5K and the charity 5K. Well, it tells me here, if I am hovering over the 5K run, that it also includes participants from the 5K charity. So if I do this and save it, I'm just giving you a little preview over here on the right. This is the pre-race report, and it shows that I have charity runner bib number 2 showing up twice in this report. This will happen in a results report. It'll show 2 versions of that person because it's going to show the charity version and the regular version of that participant. This is not what you want, obviously. So now the good thing is if this does happen to you and you see these duplicates, all you have to do is uncheck the box for charity and you're good to go. That's it. So just again, be aware of these tooltips in the note panel if they show up in your race. If you notice duplicated participants, very first troubleshooting step, go to scored events, see if there are super sub events enabled. If they are, you can either adjust the super sub event settings or just uncheck the boxes as needed and you'll be good to go. So again, just reiterating the fact, be very aware of those tooltips and you should be fine. So this was meant to be in a different spot. I had my slides in the wrong order. This was where you can get into the local super sub event settings. If you go to the sync settings area, you can click edit race, and this bounces you back over to this screen here, where you can adjust the sub events for your existing either local race or RunSignup race. So that's how you would get to this screen if you've already created a race, or if you So I think that was everything I wanted to cover on.
Excuse me, Avery. Can we go back and just stay on that screen for a second? I want to make this really crystal clear point about this. This is a local override only in race day scoring. Then you're basically changing this only from a scoring perspective. We're not changing anything up at RunSignup. We're not changing the event grouping settings that the race directors made. This is just a way for you in scoring to kind of decide that you need to handle it different from the scoring side.
Yeah, so this is again, like if you really want to make these changes, but you don't know, or you do know the registration coordinator wants it their way for whatever reason, you can just do a local override here in race day scoring. We'll not touch those settings for you. Before I move on, were there any questions on race day scoring with super and sub events before I move on?
It's kind of related to the last one that you talked about, alternate events. One of the timers had a question. You get into these scenarios where you have, a citizen 5K and a police department 5K, and you're kind of doing an event. You want to have just, an overall results that's everybody's combined, and yet you need to report out, how to do the citizens versus the police. Again, just talk through that.
Yeah, so let's take a look here. So let's say I have this race set up here. I've got a 5K run and I've got a 5K charity run. This is the one where I was about to mess up and select the charity run even though I didn't need to because it's already being included by the super sub event relationships. So there's a variety of different ways that you can filter data in race day scoring. We all know this. Let's say you wanted to set up a separate report that's just the charity runners. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go to build report, I'm going to call it charity 5K only. I'm going to select my 5K run. It'll be an overall section. I'm going to filter it. I'm going to do a scoring filter because I want the placements to be reflective of within the actual like charity people. I want to show like, hey, I was first charity, second charity, third charity. I don't care about my original placements. So I'm going to show registration event equals charity registration. So what this is going to do is it's going to limit the report to only show people who are actually registered for the charity. Now to demonstrate, I'm just going to check these boxes, which allow me to preview the report essentially. Go in and view it, and looks like I don't have anything yet. Maybe it's because I don't have this selected, or I don't have anyone registered. But that's basically what you would do. Is you basically come in and you can filter your reports as needed. I'm not sure why that's not working right now, but that's basically what you would do. You could also set up top finisher categories. So you come in here, add a band for top charity, and similarly just go in and say everybody who is in the registration event for the charity run would show up in here. Any other questions?
Timers, please put your questions in the chat channel and Avery will kind of explore it with you. Again, this is always a little bit complicated because part of this world you have control over and the other part you don't. Again, the event grouping settings are kind of outside of timer access. So this is one of the big reasons why we wanted to show you today, like how you have control over it in RaceDay scoring and kind of can deal with it on your own, regardless of how the race is set it up for you. But yeah, any questions from the timers, please feel free to post them in the chat channel. So while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, going back to those filters, Avery did talk about two types of filters if he brings that report up. One's called a scoring filter, and as he said, scoring filters, think of them as being things that will actually mean the actual places are based upon the data that's in that set. And so you're creating a set where we're going to actually change the placement. Sometimes you do want to actually just generate a report for all the certain category, but you want their place still be the overall place that was in the combined, and then you would use what's called participant display filters there, that second filter.
Exactly.
So Kevin still says he wants the default reports to be for the police and citizens separately, and I want to create another combined event. So this sounds, I'm not seeing.
Yeah, is this really a super servant question? I mean, I feel like what I would probably do in that scenario is just not use super sub events, and I would just combine them all together here and then separate them out that way, unless they are also registered in other scored events. I feel like for that use case, it'd be easier to do it this way and then do filtered reports to break these down from there. So that's probably what I would do, Kevin, is just, if it's really like, it's not really a bundle, it's probably better to just set it up like this, where all the 5K charity people go into the 5K run. And then what you can do is, I think this will show me now, like, yeah, here we go. So now the person is showing the charity runner is the only one in the charity 5K. And I'll do a 5K no charity, where I have an overall where I say I have a scoring filter for registration event equals regular, so that here I have a filtered report of anybody in the 5K only, and they'd show up in there. I think that would be probably more appropriate for the kind of thing that you're working on.
Great, thank you, Avery. We're good. Kevin said he's good.
Cool. All right, we'll move on. Just a note, if anyone on the call today is using Super and Sub events, or you're curious about how it works with the RunSignup race results integration, this is the integration that syncs participant data between RunSignup registration platform and RaceResult 12 scoring software. So if you are using that software, just be aware we recently disabled the ability. We don't actually send down the sub-event records any longer because there's a way race results uses the bib number as like a key value, so you can't have more than one person with the same bib number in their software. So now, if you are using this for a bundle kind of setup, what you would want to do is select the checkbox to also send the bundle participants down, and then you'll have to kind of sort out how you manage the records in race results, because we are not going to be sending down the multiple instances of the participants any longer to race results, because it causes a bit of a problem. And I think kind of went through what I wanted to on the demo already. So unless there's any other questions, we'll just wrap this up. We're about a half an hour, which is what we like to shoot for these. We do have some upcoming webinars. RunSignup Websites V2 on May 9th. If you are looking to overhaul your registration website design, check this out. We're going to be doing a RaceDay check-in app overview. That's going to be more of a general overview of the application, why you might want to use it, not necessarily how to use the check-in app or how to do advanced configurations. It's more of just like a brief overview. And then we'll have a Timer Tip Tuesday, May 21st on triathlon best practices as the season is up and coming. If you are doing triathlons, need a refresher on triathlons or multi-segment races in general, check this one out. And then just highlighting, we have the Timers Masters program in Philadelphia at the RunSignup University course this year. So June 11th through 12th, it's kind of going to be a bit of a replacement for a symposium, but a little bit more of a deep dive. So we have our preliminary agenda ready to go here. We're going to be going through product updates for RaceDay scoring, FAQs, advanced features. We're going to have these little lab breakouts covering all of our different pieces of software that we have. We're going to be doing a morning run demo and a tech debrief of that run. So we'll actually time and score it with RaceDay scoring and show it off to you. We're going to have timer panel discussions, expanding timer revenue discussion, and a timer advisory board where we ask a few timers to talk about how they use our software and what we can do better with it. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks again to everyone who joined us, and let us know if you have any questions. We'll be in touch. See you next time.
Brian said to like and subscribe.